Today I'm going to tell you guys about the 1984 National in a video that I had set up prior to my visit to the Atlantic City National in 2022. The thing is, I thought I actually lost this video, so it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have a different shirt on, obviously, but I really hope you guys are going to enjoy this, so stick around. Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with HistoryThroughCards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So with the National just right around the corner, I thought this would be a great time to show you guys this right here. Now, this is the 1984 National Program, and it is filled with history, and I wanted to kind of share some of that with you. And right off the bat, if you guys haven't noticed, this young gentleman right here, this is actually Andrew Ehrenstein, who's the son of Mike Ehrenstein. And Andrew is a really nice guy. He's got a lot of hobby knowledge behind him, as does his dad. And I would love to interview his father at some point. And I also wanted to tell you a little bit more about this as well and share some articles that are in here too. So, when I was going through this magazine, I found a lot of articles here that were written by Christopher Benjamin, Lou Lipset, Bob Lemke, and Gavin Riley, who is the co founder of the National. And Uh, this national is actually really important because it was at the Aspen Hotel in Parsippany, New Jersey, and in this case, this year, the national is going to be in Atlantic City, and the Parsippany, New Jersey national was the basically it was kind of the founding of Beckett magazine, and there are a few people, dealers, collectors at this particular national that I actually know, and I think some of them are actually going to be at this national as well. And I'm going to read off a couple of names, and maybe you guys would know who they are. Let's see. Bill Heitman. So Bill Heitman, he did a lot of the research on the backs of the T206 and wrote some really great articles from 1979, 1980 on this particular set. And I actually wrote about Bill Heitman in my look at the T206 set. And what he actually did was he kind of like compared the rarity of the backs to the factory numbers as well. And before that, you didn't really have any hobby pioneers, if you will, or any writers who actually paid a whole lot of attention to what was going on the back of the card. There was always the front of the card of the player. And, again, I've heard from a lot of hobby hobbyists, if you will, that the T206s, at least in this time, were going for maybe a couple of bucks each. And when I first started collecting them in the 90s, I was getting them for about $5 a piece. And now, T206 to the moon, as they say. So those cards have really skyrocketed in price. But it was Bill Heitman who was the first one that I'm aware of who really dove into the rarity of the backs and associated the backs with the factory numbers. And if you guys haven't read my very lengthy article on the T206, you guys can do that, especially if you have a problem sleeping at all. I do, so whenever I have a hard time sleeping, I just read one of my articles and I'm out like a light. Anyway, getting on to other dealers. We have Mike Burkus, who is the other co-founder of the National as well. And I heard he is a very well respected dealer and collector during his lifetime. And then you have Mike Aaronstein. And again, Mike Aaronstein is a hobby pioneer. He's one of the later hobby pioneers, but he has done so much for the hobby over the last 40 plus years. And I'm actually going to show you guys a couple of snippets as well. Let me see if I see what we got here. So I did see he is actually one of the show sponsors of this, and I'm gonna actually just show you that snippet. And then you have Keith Oberman, and Keith Oberman was a speaker at this show as well. And Oberman is a hobby pioneer. He also contributed to the 1981 Don Russ set as well. I believe he took about 5 to 10 photos that you can see in that set, and he's done a lot of real major research to sports cards, and he's done some really great, fantastic work with that. Uh, and then you have Mike Gordon. Um, you also have a lot of other names too here that I'm going to read off, and I was really kind of surprised at some of the people who are here. If there's a name that I've missed and that you know about who was at that show in 1984, let me know because I'd love to hear about it. So Greg Bizenow, uh, Jerry Dorvac, and Jerry Dorvac, if you guys don't know the name, he's actually one of the major artists for the 1953 Top set. So he was at this show. He did not do the 1953 Topps Mickey Mantle, but that he had said, but he did a lot of those cards, and I think he was in college at the time. I could be mistaken, but he also did a lot of, I think, work for Hanna-Barbera, the Flintstones. So he's a huge name that's I think maybe kind of forgotten today, which is unfortunate. Then you have Denny X, and that's ECKES. So he's the co-founder of Sport Americana with Dr. Jim Beckett, and he again has done some really amazing stuff. Unfortunately, he passed away quite young, I believe in like 1990, 91 or so. But then you have Michael Gidwitz as well, and you guys can check out his name on the internet. And then you have Walter Hall from Hall's Nostalgia, and you have Barry Halper. Obviously, Barry Halper is a major collector during his time. Just a very large collection. Obviously, the Halper collection went up for auction at Sotheby's. I have that auction catalog somewhere on the back here. And then you have Bill Henderson, another major name from the past. Bill Huggins of Huggins and Scott, and I was really kind of surprised to come across his name. And then you have Rich Klein, and I think this is the Rich Klein that is a writer, and I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure, but you know what? I'm not 100% sure. So if you guys know that this is the Rich Klein, let me know. You also have Kevin Savage, who I've done business with for years and years. I've known him for a very long time. Great guy. And I was again really kind of shocked to see his name in here too. Irv Lerner, who's another hobby pioneer. He's been around forever. And you have Bob Thing, and Bob Thing I've known for a long time. He actually is at the Greater Boston Sports Collectors Convention every year, and he's kind of out of the the game now, the hobby game. But what he does is he sells supplies and stuff, and he's a great guy. Um, he's been around the hobby since the 1950s. That's going back. So he's got a lot of stories, I'm sure, about a lot of the other hobby pioneers and what card collecting was like when he was a kid. Just a great wealth of information. And then you have Bill Mastro, and I met Bill Mastro at the last one of the last nationals that I was at Atlantic City back in 2003. Um, I didn't get his autograph, and I should have. Uh, anyway, you have Ron Osser, who's an auctioneer, and I've talked about him on one of my videos, or at least with I think with AIH Sports. I may have mentioned him there too. And then you have Dick Roos, who is another hobby pioneer, and he I think went back to the 1940s. And I don't think he's with us now at this point. I think he'd be in his 90s. But again, he had a lot of cards in his collection and a lot of great stories as well. And then you have Al, Mr. Mint Rosen, and I again, Mr. Mint is another guy I knew for a very long time, and he passed away, I believe, in 2017 of cancer. But he was interesting to talk to. He was kind of hit or miss with a lot of collectors and dealers. He was always good to me as long as I didn't write about him, and because he'd always say, "I'll sue you if you do." So I was like, "Okay, fine. Let me have your autograph, though." He's like, "Okay." So I have a couple of autographs of him. And I spoke to him every year, and he was good to me. Anyway, oh, the other thing about Mr. Mint Rosen is I think that he was one of the first dealers to actually spike Mickey Mantle's cards, and that's what really he was kind of known for. Was going around to shows back in the 1970s and picking up virtually every single Mickey Mantle card that he could find, and there's a lot on him out there. So some of these collectors and dealers and hobby pioneers, um, they're not easy to try to piece together their careers in the hobby, if you will. And a lot of times, just finding a photograph is very difficult of some of these guys. The other one too is Elwood Sharf, and Woody Sharf. I did a retrospective of in one of my articles because he goes back to the 1930s, at least 1933. He's a World War II veteran. I believe he was in the Navy. But in the 1930s, he was collecting Gaudis, and he had fond memories of collecting Gaudis. And he wrote about it about 1970 or so. So I wanted to introduce him to my readers in my look in the 1933 Gaudi set. And he was also something of an ace when it came to exhibit cards as well. He really knew his stuff. And then you have Wayne Varner from Shoebox Cards, and I knew Wayne for again a long time, and he was very helpful to me when I first started collecting vintage when I was a teenager. And he was a great guy. Unfortunately, he's passed away now, but I always had fond memories of him. And then you have Mike Wheat, and again, Mike Wheat and Wayne Varner, they both had mail catalogs, and this is really the beginning of how these collectors would get their cards was through mail order catalogs, and those two guys have been in the hobby for a very long time, a lot longer than I've been alive, I'm sure. And Mike Weed is a gentleman that I used to do business with when I was a teenager as well. And I really loved going through his catalogs. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I'm not even sure he's still in the hobby or not. But another guy that I think you could consider as a hobby pioneer is Bruce Yalko. And Bruce was at this show, which I was really kind of surprised at because I thought he'd given up card collecting back in the 70s. Bruce Yalko is actually one of the very first dealers, full-time dealers, in fact. And he started, I think, in about 1962 as a dealer. And what he did was he went directly to the card companies to get his products, and that was very unusual, almost unheard of at the time. And I think he was buying and selling cards to pay for his music career. And he's another guy I'd love to meet at some point. And then you have Kit Young, and Kit Young's been around forever. He obviously is still in the hobby, and I've never met him, but I've heard really great things about Kit Young, and he sends me stuff all the time. I haven't really purchased anything from him, but he's another guy I'd love to chat with. I may have actually met him. I've met so many people in the hobby that I can't remember everybody. But then you have Bill Zimpelman, and Bill Zimpelman is associated with Wayne Varner, and he was also a very nice guy, and he helped me out quite a bit during my formative hobby years, if you will. And so I I um I really liked to talk to him. He was a great guy. Um, and then you have Les Davis, and I believe Les Davis was the publisher of the Rapper magazine, but you guys can tell me if he was or not. I've heard about that magazine being pretty influential, uh, especially in the early 1980s. And then you have Dr. Jim Beckett, and I've never met Jim Beckett. I would love to meet Dr. Beckett, shake his hand, and say thank you very much. I greatly appreciate what you've done because he has done a lot of great things in the hobby. Um, some things I'm not really a fan of, I gotta say. The one thing that I'm a little critical of, and it's not really probably something that he had ever meant to do. But the Beckett magazine is, I think, kind of, or was at least when I was growing up, kind of like the Wall Street Journal for the hobby, with the arrows up and down. I'm not really a big fan of that. The hobby really shouldn't be treated like Wall Street. That's just my own personal opinion, and you guys are very more well than welcome to disagree. But tell me why. Tell me why you disagree, or if you agree. The other thing I really didn't like about Beckett magazine was that it kind of focused on modern stuff over uh, the vintage side, and it didn't really get into like any of the hobby pioneers as much. Every once in a while, you'd hear the name Jefferson Burdick, but that would be about it, and you wouldn't know exactly what made him famous, right? So other than that, I really enjoy Beckett, and I have a lot of fond memories of Beckett magazine, just the magazine itself. All right, so I have actually a near complete run of Beckett magazines from 1985 through, I believe, 2009, 2011. Anyway, this is actually the first. Now, this is a reprint because I can't find a original copy. It doesn't really matter to tell you the truth. I'm just as happy with a reprint, but it's very simple. It's very simple, and there is basically no photos of it, of the cards, which was a key moment in my life as a collector. And it looks something like this. So, uh, the one fun thing about Beckett for me was going through and looking at the photos of the cards. And I always kept on thinking, wait, how am I ever going to afford some of these prices? And when I'm going through this thing, I kind of shed a tear, really, especially with the Sport Americanas that I have here in the back. You look at some of those prices, and 1933 Gaudi Babe Ruth, I believe, is going for about $60 in like 1982, and oh my God, where's a time traveling flying DeLorean when you need one? Like seriously. Anyway, uh, unfortunately, they don't have those, but what they do have here, I can just tell you right off the bat, just reading some of this stuff. Willie Mays, the 1952 tops, was going for $300, 275, 300, and Mickey Mantle, they say it's a double print here. It was going for 1,200 to 1,400. And then obviously, Whitey Ford rookie was $50, and the Stan Musial rookie in 1948 Bowman was, let me see, I just saw it. Oh, $65. Oh my God, I think I paid like 175 for mine, but even so. Anyway, the one funny thing about that is that when you go through these kind of magazines and you look at the prices, uh, you have to kind of figure out the what people were making at the time per hour, and then it kind of like makes a little bit more sense. It puts things into better perspective. Uh, and this was like $2.50 when it came out, and even the Sport Americana I think was like eight or $9. So in 1981, like that's expensive. It really is. I didn't see a whole lot of those growing up either. And then I may have told you guys in past video that Beckett magazine for me and my cousin, it was like gold. It really was. It was our equivalent of the Wall Street Journal. And the thing is, we didn't want dealers to know that we had one on us. So we'd roll it up and put it in our pockets, and then we'd go and check out the cards at the store or this place called McSunny's Flea Market, which really was a fantastic place at antiques and stuff, and just it was great for a kid. Anyway, we'd go and scurry off somewhere, and then we would open up our Beckett's, or we'd memorize the prices of the cards that we wanted, and then we'd go and check out to see what they had. And I think the last time I was there, I bought a 1982 Tops pack, and I ate the gum, and that was almost 20 years after it was issued, and I can tell you that gum does not age like wine. So anyway, so let me get back to this because there's a few articles here that I want to share with you guys, and I think you're going to find them really interesting. So I'm going to pick three articles, and I'll see you afterwards. The Road to Persephone by Lou Lipsett. The idea of a national convention for sports collectors was first conceived in 1980 by three Southern California collectors, Mike Burkus, Steve Brunner, and Gavin Riley. The idea was first proposed in the hobby papers in early 1980. The location was to be at the airport Marriott just outside Los Angeles International Airport. The Grand Ballroom would hold 160 dealer tables, including many who came across country. The First National established some traditional functions, which are still maintained. The first banquet was held with former Los Angeles Dodger pitcher Joe Moeller, the guest speaker, while succeeding Nationals have moved the banquet to a Thursday luncheon. It's become, quote, national tradition, unquote. Los Angeles also inaugurated the idea of seminars and group discussions, which have become a part of every national since. A rare card presentation was made, a practice that was discontinued until this year. Also, the location of the succeeding year's national was selected on Sunday morning in California, with presentations made by Detroit, Chicago, and St. Louis. The Motor City prevailed. The second National Sports Collectors Convention was held at the Plymouth Hilton on July 9th through the 12th, 1981. The convention was hosted by Carol and Lloyd Thorpe, who expanded on the ideas initiated in Los Angeles. There were 200 dealer tables now. Ernie Harwell, Detroit's Hall of Fame announcer, was the speaker at the banquet, and several guest ball players were on hand to sign autographs, including Al Kaline, Ned Garver, Norm Cash, and Paul Foytek. A new innovation was a softball game early in the morning, which also had become a tradition. The idea of a hospitality room for dealers at the conclusion of the day's activities was expanded at Detroit, and there was food, drink, and socializing for all who wished to participate. Of course, the socializing didn't really start until the food and drink was gone. Once again, the balloting for the following year's event was held Sunday morning, and in a surprise, St. Louis won easily as they were the only group putting in a bid. The third national was once again at an airport Marriott, this time just outside St. Louis Lambert Airport. The convention was hosted by four longtime collectors: Bill Stone, Paul Merchant, B.A. Murray, and Mimi Alonji. The dates were August 26th to August 29th, 1982. Once again, all the ideas brought forth in previous nationals were incorporated and, if possible, expanded upon. Tables were increased to 225, and the guest speaker was Bob Broig, a prominent St. Louis sports writer. Enos Slaughter and Terry Moore were on hand to sign autographs. The voting for the fourth national was held on Sunday night, and there were these proposals from Chicago, Greater New York, and Las Vegas. Chicago won, easily making it the third consecutive year that the convention would be held in the Midwest. No one really expected what happened in Chicago. Hobby paper headlines proclaimed, quote, "The hobby has arrived," unquote, after both the second and third nationals, but it really did in Chicago. Without question, the biggest and best show sports collectors had ever seen was also probably one of the best shows any hobby had ever seen. The show was hosted by Bruce and Bonita Painter, a husband and wife collecting team long active in Chicago collecting circles. The show was held at the Holiday Inn O'Hare Kennedy outside Chicago's major airport on July 10th, 1983. The first hint of a spectacular was the size of a ballroom, 23,000 square feet, virtually double the size of those used previously. The number of dealer tables were now at 276, also the most ever. Publicity reached the front page of the national newspaper USA Today. When dealers checked in, they received a national, quote, first, unquote, an elaborate colored program with schedules of events, articles, floor plan, and ads. The fact that the Major League All-Star Game was being held that week in Chicago was also a factor in drawing many people to Chicago. First National Sports Collectors Convention, August 28, 1980 to September 1st, 1980, by Gavin Riley. The inspiration for the National Convention was not so much a single brainstorm as the evolution over time of something our hobby desperately needed back in 1980. Since the first organized hobby get-together was staged in Los Angeles in 1969 and the first hotel event in Detroit of 1970, hobby shows have multiplied like rabbits. Unfortunately, the greater numbers have led to more and more simplification, particularly of convention activities that were not revenue producers. Without banquets, programs, displays, roundtable discussions, and general opportunities for hobbyists to interact, the shows became carbon copy swap meets distinguished only by location. It was after the 1979 West Coast Convention that Mike Burkus, Steve Brunner, and I came to the conclusion as hobbyists first, these shows, although financially rewarding, were lacking in overall hobby satisfaction. When I detected virtually the same sentiment in talking to Frank Barning, the publisher of Baseball Hobby News, who had come out for that show and had an even wider feel for the hobby. I thought the time might be right for a special hobby event where the show, although still important, was designed to be just one activity in a large agenda. That we envisioned was a single event staged in a different part of the country each year that would truly be a convention, providing news, information, the opportunity to add to collectors, and time to meet and converse with fellow collectors. Since few hobbyists had the money or time to travel to shows all over the country, we wanted to start one that everyone could see as very special. Such an event was a radical change from what most had grown accustomed to at card shows, so it was first necessary to gauge the general hobby reaction to such an enterprise. Thus, we wrote an open letter to the hobby in November 1979, which was produced in all the hobby papers. The letter explained our idea of a national convention and went on to say that more than just talk about such an event, we needed to follow through with the promoting first such convention if the hobby reaction was positive. The response turned out to be virtually unanimously supportive, with many people offering to help and out in any way we could use them. Even negative responses, which we anticipated from some major show promoters who might have felt threatened, or people wanting a more central location for the event than California, were minimal. This kind of mandate made the actual work of the event very satisfying. The Los Angeles Marriott Hotel at the airport was an ideal location with easy access from all areas of sprawling Los Angeles and convenient to out-of-state attendees who wound up being 25% of the table holders. The hotel also had a 12,000 square foot ballroom for over 160 tables and ample meeting and socializing areas. The Los Angeles Dodgers enhanced our kickoff banquet on August 28th by sending Joe Moeller from their speakers bureau to keep everyone roaring with baseball stories. Irv Lerner, Bill Heitman, and Stan Marks were among those who conducted well-attended and informative seminars, and the hospitality room was packed, particularly the first night of the event when Barry Halper led a roundtable discussion of the need for a national organization. The fact that the concept has never progressed beyond that point is indicative of at least one area where there is still room for the hobby advancement. The show part of that national is still the largest ever staged in the West. The 160 tables were occupied by dealers and collectors from 29 states, plus Canada, and the attendance of well in excess of 6,000 dwarfed any show before or since. 5 different Los Angeles television shows carried the event on their nightly news, as well as 3 major metropolitan newspapers which did stories. Maybe the highlight of that weekend took place on Sunday, September 1st, 1980, when many dedicated collectors took time out from the show to sit down and hear from cities hoping to sponsor the second national. The fact that Detroit won that vote is not nearly as significant as the satisfaction Mike, Steve, and I had in knowing the event you are attending this week had been embraced by the hobby so overwhelmingly. Enjoy the Show by Bob Lemke. Dear collector, congratulations on your decision to attend what has become the most prestigious event in the sports memorabilia hobby, the National Sports Collectors Convention, now in its 5th annual incarnation. Whether this is your first year in the hobby or your 51st year, I am sure you're going to find this convention the big one, to be as entertaining, vital, and exciting as the hobby itself. Our hosts have put together a hobby happening that is unprecedented in size and scope. Whether your hobby interests lie, you're going to find much here to meet your needs. I urge you to take advantage of the special opportunities this show presents to learn about your hobby and how to make the most of it. Naturally, the principal reason most of us are here at the National is to add to our collections. The more than 300 tables of dealers and collectors set up at this show offer you the widest possible selection of sports memorabilia and related collectibles. If you can't find the cards, uniforms, yearbooks, display items, autographs, photos, programs, or whatever else is on your want list at this show, you probably didn't look hard enough. Never have so many quality dealers come together in one place to serve your needs. You will find many of the table holders to be willing buyers or traders, but remember, whether you are buying, selling, or trading, take a few moments to get to know the other person. One of the greatest things about the sports memorabilia hobby is that despite the fact that it has become big business, we have never outgrown the spirit of fraternity, which has been an essential aspect of the hobby. As your own collection of cards or other memorabilia grows, so will your circle of hobby acquaintances and friends. Many of us have traveled hundreds or thousands of miles to be here, and this is your big chance to connect with a real person with a name you may have seen dozens or hundreds of times in the pages of the hobby magazines. It also holds true for our special guests at this show, the former players who are here to sign autographs. Hold up that line for a second and to exchange a greeting with these fellows and let them know you appreciate their being here. The autograph you get will mean a whole lot more in the coming years when you recall your face to face meeting with the men who were once just pictures on your baseball cards. Besides the activity on the show floor, be sure to avail yourself of the educational seminars, hobby forums, and exhibits. One of the great things about the hobby and about this show is that some of the sports collecting world's most knowledgeable people are making the effort to share the hard earned hobby lore that has taken them a long time to acquire. You never stop learning about the sports memorabilia hobby as long as you remain active in it. Make the most of opportunities such as this to enjoy yourself as you pick up bits and pieces of hobby knowledge that will stand you in good stead for many years to come. And by all means, don't forget to have some fun. The organizers of this event have gone out of their way to make sure we don't take all of this too seriously. There are ball games to go to, the traditional convention softball game, contests of skill, and just plain old social get togethers. Planned and impromptu. Enjoy them. That is what we're all here to do. I love reading out loud as much as I love taking a physics exam. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. And you know, the one funny thing about what Bob Lemke had said was he's 100% right. You never know who you're going to meet in the hobby and what kind of experiences you're going to get out of it. For me personally, I've gotten a different education than I did in school, and that's one of the reasons why I do what I do and I collect cards. It's not just about the player or the card itself, but for me, it's an opportunity to learn about something that I might not have learned before otherwise. And so, guys, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, I will see you guys at the National, uh, and it's going to be great. So, uh, enjoy. Thanks. Bye.